3 Lives, 3 Worlds, Lotus Steps Book 3. One Step for 1,000 Kalpas. Chapter 7. By Tangqi. Prince Yihua woke up 2 days later and was surprised that he was in the Blue Bird clan. In the Fubo Hall, a jade chair was added next to the spar bed where Yihua was lying. His Highness the Third Prince sat on it, reviewing with Mr. Yihua, who had finished drinking the medicine, the whole story of his trip to Gongzi Mountain to Fujiao that day. His Royal Highness the Prince recalled that after receiving the order and descending to the realm, he found the evil dragon in Luan Mountain in the northern wilderness. He fought with the dragon for 9 days and nights. Both of them were exhausted, and there was no winner. Thinking that there was no way to continue wasting the dragon, he marched dangerously, risking being seriously injured by the dragon's horns. He met the enemy head-on and cut off the dragon's head. The evil dragon fell upon him, and his heart and lungs were pierced by the dragon's horns. He was unable to control the clouds and fell from midair. He had no idea what happened after that. There is nothing wrong with these words at first, but His Highness the Third Highness knows Yuejun very well. After hearing his review, he has a question. Risk your own life in the army? This is not your temperament. His Highness leaned lazily on the jade chair and tapped the handle of the fan in his hand. These words are deceiving my father, your grandfather, or your father and me. Brother, it's okay. I deceived your third uncle and but I owe you a little bit of heat. Yihua fell silent. After a long silence, he spoke. My nephew has a question for my third uncle. His Highness, still leaning lazily, smiled and said, You ask. Yihua looked up at him, his expression calm, but his voice was slightly turbulent. Have you known for a long time that Master Bai Qian actually has no interest in me and is unwilling to marry me, and has always wanted to find an opportunity to break off the engagement with the Celestial clan? His Highness the Third was stunned for a moment. He was so shrewd. He connected back and forth and immediately understood what was going on. Did the dragon say that? Seeing Yihua's silence, he understood that this was most likely the case. The Third Highness sat upright and frowned slightly. So, it was the dragon who said this to provoke you during the battle? It was indeed true. The young prince and the dragon fought all the way from the northern wilderness to the northeast wilderness, and on the 9th day they reached Gongzi Mountain in the eastern wilderness. Evil Jiao was very tired, but Lord Yihua was fine. On the first day of the battle, Lord Yihua figured out that physical strength was the weak point of the evil dragon, so he deliberately chose a delaying tactic, using defense instead of attack, just waiting to wear down his physical strength in order to find a good one. The opportunity strikes and kills him. The evil dragon was also smart. Seeing that prolonging the battle would not be beneficial to him, after attacking Yihua with lightning and lightning to no avail, he deliberately taunted. The dignified prince of the heavenly clan only knows how to hide. No wonder Bai Qian is the immortal. I don't look down on you, so if you have the ability, you can give me a big move. The evil dragon said this because he wanted to disturb Yihua's mind, break his defense, and take the opportunity to reverse the situation. Yihua shouldn't have been fooled by him, but Evil Jiao's provocative words were chosen well, and Yihua's expression immediately changed. The evil dragon immediately understood that this plan was done, and became even more arrogant with joy. Oh, don't you know yet? But many people in Dongwang know that their aunt looks down on you, the young prince, and has always wanted to have sex with you. The clan has broken off the engagement, ha 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 ha. The immortals of the eastern wilderness all call their female monarch Bai Qian, the immortal auntie. Although Yihua ignored the evil dragon and still concentrated on fighting, his mind was indeed in confusion. However, the young prince was born with a calm temperament, and the word calm has been engraved into his instincts. He knew that evil dragons would take advantage of him when he was restless, which was very dangerous, so he simply abandoned the cauldron, risked his troops, and launched an offensive in advance. The fatal blow of the evil dragon. Therefore, in the end, the giant dragon was slaughtered and he was seriously injured. This is the truth about how Yihua slaughtered Jiao that day. His Highness guessed the truth correctly, but the young prince did not want to say more, so he did not answer the question of the Third Highness. He only said, It seems that the third uncle did know that the immortal has no intention of me. The young prince looked confused. Since third uncle knew that the immortal had no interest in me, why didn't he warn me earlier, but still allowed me to get close to Qingqiu and the Bai family? When His Highness the Third Highness heard this question, his eyebrows moved slightly. The Xian fan turned back and forth twice in his hand. He thought about it for a while before speaking. You should know the reason why the Tian clan hired Bai Qian back then. The Heavenly Lord did not hire Bai Qian for your sake, but for the benefit of the whole clan. Yihua nodded. He naturally knew this. 30,000 years ago, his second uncle Tangqi regretted his marriage to the immortal Bai Qian because of a minibus snake and severely offended Qingqiu. In order to repair the relationship with Qingqiu, after banishing his second uncle to Beihai, Tianjun promulgated a decree and appointed the supreme immortal Bai Qian to be the crown prince of the celestial clan. At that time, he had not yet been born, and there was no prince in the heavenly clan. There is no crown prince yet, but the crown princess has been decided. This move is unprecedented, and it does give Qingqiu a lot of face, and eases the relationship between the Tian clan and Qingqiu. In the 3rd year after that, he was born. Due to the auspiciousness descended from heaven at the time of his birth, even though the canonization ceremony had not been held, he was already recognized as the crown prince of the heavenly clan in Bahuang. From the heavenly lord to the spirits of the 5 tribes in the Bahuang, they all call him the prince. Since he is the prince of the heavenly clan, he is destined to marry Qingqiu Baijian because of the heavenly lord's decree. This was the origin of his marriage to Baijian. The mysterious fan in the 3rd prince's right hand stopped spinning. He looked at the young prince and said with rare seriousness, "Since you are the chosen prince, you must marry Bai Qian to be your crown prince. This is something that cannot be changed. If not, variables, Bai Qian will accompany you on the road of hundreds of thousands of years in the future. I, Tianjun, or your parents do not want you and Bai Qian to become a resentful couple. This is why we hope that you will take the initiative to get close to each other." The reason for Bai Qian and Qingqiu. As for Bai Qian's desire to break off the engagement, this is something that has only been reported in the past 100 years. She is much older than you. Due to her age, she has various concerns. You should also understand. She has concerns and wants to break off the engagement. If you can't let go, so I tried my best to dispel her worries, so there is no need to be particularly depressed. The 3rd prince picked up the celadone cup on the table. However, this is just my opinion as a bystander. It mainly depends on what you think about this matter. The 3rd prince finished drinking the tea, put down the teacup, and looked up at the young prince. "So, what do you think?" Yihua was slightly startled by the words of His Highness the 3rd Highness. After being slightly startled, I felt stunned again. His 3rd uncle never acted like an elder in front of him. He was very different from his father and the 2nd uncle whom he had only met a few times. Although his 3rd uncle loved to tease him, he never preached to him, so he had been close to him since he was a child. This was the first time in his life that his 3rd uncle used a teaching tone similar to that of an elder and spoke such a long story to him. Yihua was quiet for a moment. His 3rd uncle asked him what he thought. He does have some ideas. Since I was born, I still don't know what a marriage contract is or what it means to spend a lifetime with someone. I already know that the person I will marry in the future is the immortal Bai Qian from Qingqiu. He said in a slightly hoarse voice. They told me that she was Emperor Baiji's favorite daughter and the most beautiful woman among the gods. They also told me that she was born in ancient times and was much older than me. She might think I was naive. They also told me that as a husband, you should make achievements externally and protect your wife and children internally. His Highness the 3rd Highness knew that the they mentioned by the young prince should refer to several civil servants in his palace. The young prince has an upright temperament, but there are 2 young civil servants in the Shiwu Palace who have lively tempers. However, the prince is not surprised by them and has always been tolerant. His Highness the 3rd Highness did not express his opinion on what the junior civil servants said to the prince, but chose an insignificant question to ask. "So you've been pretending to be mature since you were a child?" The young prince was silent for a moment and said, "Yes." He didn't say any more words and frowned slightly, as if organizing what he was going to say next. His Highness did not urge him. After a while, as if he had thought about what to say, the young prince continued, "For the past 30,000 years, it cannot be said that I have forced myself to focus on practice and strive to progress, just for her. I became an immortal at 20,000 years old because of my bet with Lord Tangqi and because I wanted to see my mother and concubine again. But when I can't hold on any longer during my practice, I occasionally tell myself that I must hold on because I have such a princess. I am far behind her in terms of age and experience, so at least in practice, you can't be too far behind her, otherwise you won't be able to match her." The young man's knuckled fingers clenched the thin quilt covering his legs, and he lowered his eyes slightly. "But I don't know. She actually doesn't want to be a match for me. She has always wanted to break off the engagement." The mysterious fan knocked on the armrest of the jade chair with a very soft sound. His Highness stared at the young prince and was quite surprised. "So, you really like Bai Qian, and she wants to break off the engagement, which makes you very sad. Injured?" He pointed his finger at the edge of the fan and said in disbelief, "But as far as I know, you have never seen her." "It?" The young prince, dressed in black clothes and with a sickly pale face, repeated the word, like he smiled. The smile was very light and did not reach the bottom of his eyes. It seemed to be self-deprecating. "I actually don't know what liking is. As the third uncle said, I have never even met her. I just know that there is such a person. She will marry me in the future and rule the 8 wastelands with me. That's all." He paused for a moment and pursed his lips slightly. "Perhaps I am just used to this kind of understanding, so I feel that it is natural to be close to Qingqiu and the immortal. It is just like getting used to the identity of the prince, getting used to practicing, make progress, and become a qualified prince according to Tianjuan's expectations. I think these are all things that should be done. I just didn't expect that the supreme immortal Bai Qian doesn't think that my marriage is natural." After saying these words, he was quiet for a long time. His Highness was silent and said nothing. After a long time, the young prince spoke again. "As for what third uncle you said, Bai Qian's concerns about the supreme immortal," he moved his gaze to the window and fixed on a smoky willow tree outside the window. "Maybe the supreme immortal is her she has concerns, but more likely, she doesn't. She just simply hates me, so she wants to break off the engagement with me." He rubbed his forehead. "I don't understand much about this. However, since the immortal wants to break off the engagement, I am willing to follow the above immortal intention. I can cancel the engagement with me whenever she wants. From now on, I will never be self-righteous again." As if he realized something, the young prince stopped in time without finishing the sentence, and then calmly he changed his words seemingly calmly. "From now on, I have nothing to do with the immortal." After the prince finished speaking, the room became extremely quiet for a while. After a moment, His Highness the Third nodded. "That's fine." The prince raised his eyes slightly and glanced at His Highness. What he just said seemed to have exhausted all his energy, and the prince's sick face became even paler, with a tired look on his face. "Didn't the third uncle just now hope that I would dispel Bai Qian's concerns? I thought the third uncle would think I was childish, not enough to take care of the overall situation." He lowered his eyelashes. He might be too tired to control his expression accurately, and there was a trace of depression on his face. "For the benefit of the heavenly clan, I should indeed dispel the concerns of the immortal. The only thing is to strive for marriage with Qingqiu." His Highness the Third Prince put away the fan and held it in his hand, and smiled. "I am not a heavenly king. I consider the interests of the heavenly clan every day." He stood up and said, "If you like it, then go for it. Since you don't like it, then it's true. There is no need to try to save it." He lowered the curtain for the tired young prince. "You are tired. Please sleep for a while." After the prince woke up, he had been recuperating in Fubo Hall under the care of Mr. Kongshan for 6 or 7 days. During this period, Xiao Zudi followed Lian Song to visit the prince 3 or 5 times. It should be said that although little Zudi did not understand the relationship between men and women, she was still a knowledgeable person. She naturally saw that Jiyu Wangji liked His Highness the Crown Prince. When the prince woke up, she felt that the bamboo-talking queen should be the happiest person, but she met the bamboo-talking queen several times in the garden, and she always looked sad. She observed for a while and found that Wang Ji was indeed getting haggard, which she found strange. Later, I figured out from the chat with the little palace maids in the garden that Wang Ji was like this because although she was the savior of His Highness the Crown Prince, and the prince was very polite to her after waking up, his attitude was always indifferent. Wang Ji felt that His Highness the Crown Prince was I don't like her. She is sad, hurts my liver, hurts my heart, so I am haggard and clear. Little Zidi has always felt that the bamboo language Wangji is very beautiful and valuable as a rare cyan winter flower. Such a beautiful and precious flower has been wilting and drooping in the past few days, and even the leaves have rolled up. I would like to ask Xiao Zidi, a person who cherishes flowers, how can she turn a blind eye to this and sit back and ignore it? On a sunny day, she walked over uninvited and sat next to the bamboo language Wang Ji in the waterside pavilion. She folded her arm familiarly, held her right cheek, looked at Juyu, and comforted her softly. Don't be unhappy, Sister Juyu. The prince is not just cold to you. Who has he been treating recently? They are all cold. I heard Brother Liansan say that he is cold to everyone because he is in a bad mood, and it has nothing to do with us. When Jiyu saw Xiao Zidi sitting over, he was a little confused at first, but after hearing what she said, his mood was a little complicated. She originally didn't like little Zidi, but she still remembered the first time they met. The handsome young man stared intently at His Highness the Crown Prince's face. Jiyu is a royal concubine who lives in the deep palace. She has more imagination after reading too many stories. She doesn't think that because Ziyazidi is a young man, he cannot be her love rival. At this moment, she hesitated a little and asked, Your Highness the Crown Prince, are you also very cold towards you? Xiaozudi shrugged and said truthfully, Yes, I haven't spoken to him yet. The young man's favor came out of nowhere, and Juyu immediately felt that he had developed a friendship with little Zidi. In the eyes of little Zidi, the bamboo language at this moment was a pitiful and lovely winter flower. She couldn't help but reach out and touch the edge of the beautiful flower cup. In Juyu's eyes, it was Xiao Zudi's hand that suddenly reached to her face and gently touched the side of her face. Juyu was stunned and hurriedly stepped back. What are you doing? Xiao Zudi smiled sincerely. You're a winter flower, right? She held her face and praised the bamboo from the bottom of her heart. You are so beautiful. Because you are so beautiful, I want to touch it. Your petals, he said worriedly. Did I hurt you when I touched you? What Xiao Zudi did was truly an act of deceit. If a fat-headed person had done this, even a weak Wang Ji like Juyu who couldn't take care of herself would have immediately called for someone to beat her to death. But little Zudi was so pretty. Even though she was dressed like a young man, she had a beauty that transcended gender, and her eyes were so smart and pure. Therefore, Wang Ji, who was looking at her face, immediately forgave her and sat back down. He blushed a bit and said it didn't hurt. The breeze blew and the fragrance of the imperial garden floated. The two people who had made friends based on their faces just chatted in the waterside pavilion. After talking for a long time, they established a friendship and quickly changed from suspected rivals in love, became close friends. These days, Lady Misia, who is in seclusion, has not come out of seclusion, but Mr. Tsunoi comes every day to pay his respects to His Highness the Third Highness and His Highness the Crown Prince. Kanshan Lao means that it is not appropriate for the prince to move at the moment, and it is appropriate for him to stay in the Bluebird clan for treatment and rest for the time being. The Third Highness did not bother to check whether Prince Jena really shouldn't move, and simply let them arrange it. On the 10th day, in the Chaoyang Valley, in a pavilion of the Wangcheng restaurant, two immortal servants, Xiang Jia and Wei Jia, met their highness, whom they had not seen for a long time. The two immortal attendants, one a literary attendant and the other a military attendant, were previously ordered by His Highness the Third Highness to explore two different pieces of news. Xiangjia was looking for news about the demon clan. In the past month, Xiangjia and his immortal attendants have been keeping an eye on the demons. Although the assassination of Demon Lord Xinjiang on his wedding night a month ago was not made public, almost everyone who should know knew it. However, everyone couldn't figure it out. Who could be so capable as to assassinate Xinjiang? Of course, His Highness the Third Highness knew who this so-called assassin was, and also knew that she had sneaked into the Qianjue Palace disguised as Xinjiang's bride, Princess Sueyo, but where had the assassin taken the princess? He didn't know either. It was this news that Xiangjia added. According to Xiangjia's inquiries, Princess Sueyo had a lover when she was in her boudoir, and she was originally unwilling to marry Xinjiang. The assassin kidnapped Princess Sueyo unknowingly during her wedding ceremony. He also helped the princess and sent her and her lover to live in seclusion in Buting Mountain. The assassin did all this very carefully. If Princess Sueyo hadn't walked out of Buting Mountain half a month later and ran back to join Xinjiang, no one would have been able to find her. The reason why Princess Sueyo took the initiative to leave Buting Mountain was because her lover abandoned her. Her lover originally stayed with her because he hoped that as the princess's consort, he would be reused in the demon clan of Xiang. Since he was not sincere to the princess, how could he endure the harsh conditions of Buting Mountain? So he fled within 2 days of entering the mountain, leaving the princess alone in the mountains. The princess who was abandoned by her lover thought about it for 10.5 days, but she finally figured it out. After leaving the mountain, she went straight to Xinjiang. Although Xiangjia was a top-notch literary servant in Yuanji Palace, he also had a hobby of storytelling, so he had ups and downs when reporting information. Xiangjia sighed, I didn't expect that Demon Lord Xinjiang was actually a lover. Princess Sueyo's move was actually considered as running away on the day of the wedding and eloping, but he endured it. After Sueyo returned, he still treated her like jewels. Sueyo was heartbroken by her lover. Seeing how Xinjiang treated her, she was greatly moved. He no longer blamed Xinjiang for forcing her to marry him, but instead he cleared up his old grudges and started to make peace with her. This was also strange. After Xiangjia sighed about the romantic relationship between Xinjiang and Sueyo, he finally no longer looked like a storyteller and looked a little more serious. He said seriously, but in any case, this matter is also a scandal and should not be publicized. Therefore, Xinjiang could only hide the fact that he was assassinated on his wedding night to cover up the matter. Therefore, except for a few people who knew the inside story, the outside world only thought that the wedding went very smoothly, and Xinjiang got the beauty as he wished on the wedding night. In addition, the assassin who kidnapped Sueyo was also very meticulous and disguised himself when he kidnapped Sueyo. Even if Sueyo came back, he would not be able to provide any clues for Xinjiang to track down that person. Upon hearing this, Xiangjia stopped. It was rare that he was a little embarrassed, so we haven't found out who that person is. After saying this with difficulty, he cupped his hands and quickly admitted his mistake. This subordinate is not doing his job well, please. Your Majesty, you're guilty. Xiangjia lowered his head, waiting for the 3 palaces to send him down. Unexpectedly, His Highness did not convict him and only said, since Xinjiang can't be found, it doesn't matter if you can't find him. This mission was done well. There is no need to waste energy on the assassin. Just continue to keep an eye on Xinjiang. Xiangjia was flattered, knowing that His Highness the Third Prince was not so easy to talk to in the past, but he couldn't figure out why for a moment, so he accepted the order and retreated in confusion. After Xiangjia, it was Wu Shi Weijia who reported the matter. What Weijia reported was to find His Royal Highness the Prince's savior. As a military attendant, Weijia's report was not as flashy as Xiangjia's. He only said that after receiving the order, he immediately went to Kongsang Mountain, searched hundreds of caves under the mountain carefully, and then found a cave with blood stains. A white handkerchief arrived. The handkerchief was stained with blood. It was the blood of His Highness the Crown Prince. The material of the handkerchief was neither silk nor cotton, but extremely soft. The texture had a star-like luster, and it was hard to tell what it was made of. He went to Bei Wang and asked the knowledgeable Bain Zissou to look at it. Zissou said that it was a silk cloth made from the material of the setting sun of the East Wasteland. He had heard that Empress Ningxiang of the Qingqiu Kingdom, AI weaves fabrics in the evening light of the eastern wilderness, and these precious silk fabrics are used on her most beloved daughter, by Qian, the immortal. Wei Jia said bluntly, "So in summary, I speculate that when His Highness the Crown Prince's life was in danger, the person who saved him with treasures and helped him tide over the difficulties was most likely his unmarried wife Bai Qian, the immortal." Hearing Wei Jia's conclusion, His Highness Rao Shursen couldn't help but be surprised. He knocked the fan by mistake and fell on his folded knees. At the same moment, the mute spell in the pavilion was suddenly attacked and was broken. His Highness the Third Highness frowned slightly and stood up. The door of the accord was suddenly pushed open and a person fell in. With an oops sound, it was Xiao Zidi. Yin Lin and Tianbu followed closely behind. Yin Lin Xian helped little Zidi up in one step, and his usually calm face showed a bit of embarrassment. "I was walking with your young master. When I passed by, I learned that your highness was in the building, so I came to look for you." You noticed the Uda's spell on the door. At this point, the embarrassment on his face became even more intense. But little Zidi didn't feel embarrassed at all. She rubbed her sore palms. "I didn't mean to destroy our silence technique, Brother Lian-san, and I didn't want to eavesdrop on what you said. She came up with the idea. He said one word, "Jichi, seeing that you have this spell on your door, I just want to see if I can break it, haha." Silence is a technique that cuts off space. It is essentially a low-level space formation. Yin Lin added expressionlessly, "She is very good at space formations, and ordinary silence techniques are useless to her." "I didn't stop her in time, I'm sorry. But we only heard one sentence of the important words you talked about." He looked at Wei Jia. "This is the immortal who said that the person who saved Prince Yihua was actually his crown princess Bai Qian." Xiao Zudi was very strict and immediately corrected him. "She is a new crown princess." His Highness the Third Highness looked at Xiao Zidi helplessly and sighed softly. "That's all." He signaled Wei Jia to retreat and then asked Xiao Zidi, "Are you here to play with me?" Xiao Zidi sat over, took a sip of tea from his cup, and said with a smile, "Yes, even the third brother has been busy these days, so we haven't played together. Today is just the right time for us to go shopping together." The royal city in Chaoyang Valley is a very ordinary city, no different from other cities in the Eight Wastelands. However, little Zidi of this age had only been out of Zhongzi once before, when she went to Sergia for Xie Mingyi's birth, Xiao Haiyuan, so she had never seen what the city looked like, nor had she gone shopping. When she suddenly went out on the street, a noodle stall on the side of the street would amaze her for a long time, and she couldn't stop browsing this street. Lian Song patiently accompanied her until the Yushur market was over, and everyone returned to the palace with their loads. It was the end of the Yushur period when he returned to the palace, and Lian Song took his little Zudi to Fubo Hall to see the prince. The young prince is still cool and cold, as noble and cold as a lotus in the snow. Xiao Zudi thinks that the prince looks good even if he is so cold, so she doesn't have any objection if he doesn't speak. Lian Song listened to Kongshan Lao tell him about the decoction and treatment techniques prepared for the young prince today. He also told the prince like a child that he should take the medicine on time, and then led little Zudi away. Elder Kongshan sent them out of the palace, and the old doctor took the opportunity to say 2 private words to Lian Song. These 2 private words were not avoided by little Zidi, so she also heard them. Kongshan Lao said that His Highness the Crown Prince was depressed, which was extremely detrimental to his recovery. He hoped that His Highness could find an opportunity to relieve the Crown Prince. Lian Song nodded to express his understanding. When Lao Kongshan said this to him, his face showed nothing, but on the way back, little Zudi found that her third brother, Lian San, had been frowning. Little Zhu Ti was worried about Lian Song and returned to the palace. As soon as he sat down in front of the tea table, he took the initiative to bring up this topic with Lian Song. I heard from Sister Tianbu that the prince is unhappy because his unmarried princess doesn't like him and wants to break off the engagement with him. That's why he has been depressed these past few days, and no one wants to talk to him. She crossed her legs on the futon and held up her hands. He put the copy in front of his chest and put on a serious deliberation expression. I was thinking that the old doctor said that the prince has depression in his heart. Maybe this is his depression. Lian Song was pouring tea when he heard the sound and glanced at her. Seeing her expression and movements, he felt funny. So? Xiao Zudi was profound, but the immortal in the restaurant today said that when the prince was seriously injured, it was his princess who saved him. Then you think, if his princess didn't like him, she wouldn't have saved him. She felt that her reasoning was sound and logical. She couldn't help but hold the tea table with one hand and leaned closer to Lian Song. So I think that if we tell the prince about this, he will not be so depressed, and he will be happier. Yes. She asked Lian Song's opinion seriously. What do you think? His Highness the Third Prince didn't think it was good, so he handed the hot tea to Xiao Zudi. Saving Yi Hua means you like him? Seeing Xiao Zudi's innocent eyes, he remembered that she is a child now, the same child. It was obviously not appropriate to discuss whether he liked it or not, so he changed the topic and said, the two of them have never met before, it may be. He did not finish the sentence, thinking about whether to truthfully talk to Xiao Zudi about this matter. After all, this matter is complicated and tortuous, and also involves the power relationship within the God clan, which she may not necessarily be able to understand. Little Zudi was curious, but didn't it mean that the Supreme Immortal Bai Qian and the Crown Prince have been engaged for a long time? Why have they never met? This problem is not that complicated and difficult to explain, and we can continue talking about it. His Highness the Third Highness knocked on the table with 2 fingers together, indicating to Little Zudi to drink water first. After Little Zudi picked up the cup and drank half of the tea obediently, he answered her doubts. Shangxian Bai Qian is almost the same as you, likes to hide from the world and rarely goes out of Qingqiu. In the past 30,000 years, she has never attended the banquet of the Celestial Clan, so Yi Hua has never seen her. Xiao Zudi said, oh, and thought for a moment. Children are generally very straightforward in their thinking, and so is Little Zudi, so she can't quite understand. Then why doesn't the prince go to Qingqiu to find the immortal Bai Qian? Because the prince is thin-skinned and shy. His Highness sold Yi Hua without much hesitation. Little Zudi was so surprised that her tea cup accidentally hit the table. The prince is still shy. She said with great interest, he is like an iceberg snow lotus. Can a snow lotus still be shy? Can it also blush? That blush. It must look very beautiful. His Highness the Third glanced at her. You are so young. Why do you love looking at beauty so much? Little Zudi touched her nose and said, if it looks good, I'll take another look at it. She nodded to herself and concluded, so the prince and immortal Bai Qian have never met before, so. She suddenly realized, 3 times in a row my brother thinks that it is possible that the supreme immortal Bai Qian didn't even know that she was rescuing the prince when she rescued him, but she was just kind-hearted and saved him by mistake, right? The Third Highness of the Third Highness Bai Qian didn't know what kind of heart the Lord Bai Qian had. This female queen of the Eastern Wasteland was really too low-key. The 24 civil and military servants also knew very little about her. All they knew were inexplicable trivial matters. For example, one thing. There are 3 levels of immortals in the 8 wildernesses: ordinary immortals, superior immortals, and superior gods. It is difficult to ascend from an ordinary immortal to a superior immortal, but it is rare to ascend from an superior immortal to a superior god. It can be seen from this that the name of the supreme god is indeed extremely noble, but the name of the supreme immortal is actually just that. If the status is originally noble, other immortals will call this supreme immortal and call him a noble status. For example, the immortal of the 8 desolations, if you call him Lian Song, you won't call him the supreme immortal of the Song dynasty, but your Third Highness. You will call him Yi Hua. You won't call him the supreme immortal of Yi Hua, but your Highness the Prince. Tianbu has been to this lake before, but he has never seen a loft by the lake before. She immediately understood that there should have been a blinding barrier here on weekdays, but now that barrier was probably damaged or removed, and the true shape of the attic inside could be revealed. Although the attic is not high, I don't know why it was built. It generates its own brilliance in the dark night. The woman's moans and sobs came from the attic. They walked forward for a while and came to the front of the attic. They found that the attic was exquisitely built. It was built on the water with 4 pillars supporting each other. A large piece of spar was paved where it connected with the water. At this time, the attic was a woman in green is lying on the spar. The woman's back was turned to them, her face invisible. She had very long hair and a very slender figure, like a leaf attached to a spar, trembling weakly in the night wind. There is a weak, blue light circulating around the woman's body. Every few seconds, the blue light will gradually turn into red light, condense into strips, and become dazzling, like a bright red poisonous snake, entering the woman's body. Drill. Whenever this happens, the woman will cry sadly. It was the sound of painful struggle. Speaking of which, the closer they get, the more they can feel the spiritual energy contained in the attic, which shows that this is a blessed place for practice. And the crystal stone that the woman is hiding is also full of spiritual power and is a treasure that can help with practice. Based on the woman's condition, even little Zudi vaguely understood that perhaps the woman was in seclusion here to practice cultivation, and something went wrong due to careless cultivation, and she ended up in this situation. The woman seemed to feel someone approaching, so she moved with difficulty and turned her face. A snow-white face, stained with tears, weak and pitiful, could not be considered very beautiful, but the stubbornness and unyieldingness in those soft brows and eyes made this painful, pale face look extremely special. When the woman saw them, she seemed stunned. After a long time, she said, "Your Highness." Little Zudi looked at the woman inquiringly and was surprised when she heard her calling Lian Song. She turned her head and glanced at her brother Lian San and saw that Lian Song was also looking at the woman with a slight frown on his eyebrows. After a while, little Zudi heard him speak and called the woman Wan. The sound was very weak and flat, nothing could be heard. Xiao Zudi guessed that Wan should be the woman's name. She didn't expect that the woman actually knew Lian Song, but just from the expressions of the two at this time, she couldn't tell what their relationship was. She couldn't help but turn her eyes back to the woman, only to see that the blue light on the woman turned red. Then the woman's face showed a look of uncontrollable pain, and she groaned in pain again. They were so close, and the woman's moans could be heard so close, soft and pitiful. Little Zudi felt soft-hearted and felt pity in her heart when she heard this. She wanted to step forward, but was stopped by a hand. It's Lian Song's hand. Little Zudi raised her head for no apparent reason. Lian Song didn't say anything to her, but Yin Lin stood beside her in time and whispered to her, "We'll stay here." When Yin Lin talked to her, Lian Song let her go. With his hand, he walked alone towards Wanner, who was suffering in pain. Wanner saw Lian Song coming towards him and suddenly burst into tears. He endured the pain and made a few sounds besides moaning. The sound was like crying blood, and it was a cry for help. "Your Highness, save me." A few feet away, little Zudi saw Lian Song standing in front of Wan Yu. He looked down at her for a while, then knelt down and put his hand on her neck. The red light that wrapped around Wanner like a red snake quickly became lighter, and Wanner's moans of pain became much lower. Seeing that Wanner's condition had eased, little Zudi hesitated and wanted to step forward. This time, Yin Lin did not stop her, but walked with her for a while, stopping a few steps behind Lian Song and Wanner. Tianbu also followed behind them. Lian Song turned around and saw them, and was not surprised. He first said to Yin Lin, "Please take Au back." Then he told Tianbu, "You stay and protect me." Finally, he looked at little Zudi and said, "I'll be back later. You go back to sleep first." Little Zudi understood that Lian Song's arrangement was to stay and save people. In any case, saving people was the most important thing, so although she had some questions, she nodded sensibly. Seeing her nodding, Lian Song Daheng picked up Wanner, turned around and entered the attic in front of him, and Tianbu followed him a few steps away. After Yin Lin brought Xiao Zudi back to Fulan Hall, he also stayed in the main hall and made a bunk outside. But that night, little Zudi didn't sleep much. Sometimes she was thinking about who Wanner was, and sometimes she was thinking about how she knew her brother Lian San, and they seemed to be very familiar with each other. When the morning glow began to appear on the horizon, she closed her eyes for a while. And for the whole night, even Song didn't return to Fulan Hall. End of Chapter 7, Book 3.